Tommy Nation Politics.
There's only one spot open right now, so we're gonna have tryouts.
Yeah, guys, we're progressing. Progressive. So, just to recap, we could have picked any Democrat to be the nominee.
Hey, John, that's why I'm running. And you want to check my shape on, let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do.
One small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Hi guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How y'all doing today, good? So, you have a special treat today because we just watched the vice presidential debate, me and my sister Morgan Salisbury, and I thought I'd interview her so she can have a few words to all of you guys. Morgan is a PharmD. She has a doctorate. Morgan, why don't you explain what a PharmD is?
Yes, a PharmD means I have a doctorate of pharmacy. I got my doctorate from the University of North Texas, so I specialize in medication and medication therapy as well as pharmacology.
I'm a big fan of medication. Okay, so, I mean, this is really cool talking to you because you have a lot of opinions on, sickness and medication and healing and health.
I do, yes.
So, why don't we talk about this COVID crisis and what exactly that entails and what your opinions are, as far as PharmD goes?
Yeah, well, as a PharmD, in terms of medication treatment, I mean, when it comes to viruses, it's very, very hard to treat viruses.
Why is that?
Well, because, there's not a lot of cure to any viruses. Like, for instance, the common cold, there's no cure to that. It's something that millions of people get.
So how do they stop getting it? How do they get it?
You get the cold, you experience the cold, and you treat the symptoms of the cold, but you don't actually treat the virus. And eventually the virus passes. So different viruses...
The virus passes?
Yes, meaning you no longer have a virus. Because viruses are very different from bacterial infections. Bacteria, that's what we treat with antibiotics. For viral infections, we treat with antivirals, but a lot of viral infections we don't have actual treatments for. Like I said, the common cold.
Why is that? Why is it so hard to treat viral infections?
They just have a different makeup, and the way that viruses work is that they work by using the host, or you, to replicate themselves. And so, because of that, in order to kill a virus, you have to kill the host cells. And so...
The host cells?
Yeah.
Like the mothership.
Yes, so, exactly, like Independence Day. So it makes it a lot harder to kill a virus, because in order to do that, you have to learn how to kill the host cells and not killing all the cells. And most viruses, like the cold, can be passed just by waiting. And even the flu, we have a couple treatments for the flu, but none of them are very viable. And so you take a flu vaccine, it might or might not work, you get the flu, and again, you wait for it to pass. So
as far as the COVID virus is concerned, this is a new virus. First question, do you think it's man-made, or do you think it's lab, or do you think it's natural, like crawl up from the world cores of Earth? What do you think worked? Mrs. McGavin,
Interesting question. Honestly, it could be either. I would say that there is some, speculation in terms of thinking that it's man-made, because there's one thing, for instance, coronavirus has existed for a while. It's a strain of virus that has existed.
It's a strain now.
It's a strain, yes. Now, the fact that it went from being an animal virus to being able to be transmitted to humans so quickly, I think it's very possible to think that it could have been manipulated in a lab setting to become transmissible to people. So, it's definitely possible. But I'm not going to say that it's a conspiracy, that it was obviously made in a lab and then spread. I think the best... I love conspiracy theories, so the best way to think about this is I think it totally could have been made in a lab, man-made, but I do think it was accidental that it was spread. If that's
accidental. the Communist Party of China decided to get back into the United States for the tariff debacle that we've been going through with them. And the president says China's killing us.
No.
They're killing us.
The only reason I don't think that is because China got hit with the virus first. If it had been hit with the United States and not China, then I would say, oh, totally. But I think it was more accidental that it was spread. But I do think it probably was manipulated in the lab.
So, my next question is about Fauci. So he has a specialization in, infectious diseases, and he knows probably a lot more than, you, because you have a different,
Exactly, yes.
So, but basically, what do you think about the fact that he lied about masks at first? He said that you don't need masks at first, and then he came back later on and said, actually, the reason I said that was because I wanted everybody to have masks, as far as the medical personnel first, so they can save lives. I was lying, but I'm telling the truth now that everybody else has masks. Do you know about that?
No, I didn't know about that. But that statement that you just said sounds like he's trying to save face. But I will say that no one knew anything about how COVID would work, and so I honestly feel like it's still kind of inept to say that they truly know anything about COVID because they're still finding things about it. So
Yeah.
I feel like the most honest thing to say would be, this is what we discovered this week about the virus, and it could change based off of what we know later. So masks are an interesting thing because masks, what we do know from the CDC is that they don't keep you from getting the virus, they only keep you from spreading it, according to what the CDC says.
Right.
Whether or not that's actually true, maybe we'll find out in a couple weeks.
I don't know.
I will say that there's one thing that seemed a little questionable to me, is that the CDC came out with something a couple weeks ago that was talking about how wearing masks when you're in smoke is not helpful because they said that the smoke particles will get through the mask and so that it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing is that smoke particles are much larger than coronavirus particles. So if we use their same logic, then if you're saying that it's not going to work for smoke, then by their own logic, it's not going to work for the virus either. But,
that's an interesting point.
It's an interesting point, but I honestly feel like we're in a stage where what we're doing as an American people, and as honestly the world, is that we're in a state of trying to make people feel comfortable, and we're also trying to be responsible. And so I understand why people want to wear masks, and I understand why we have social distancing, why we have different stipulations, is because we want to make people feel safe. Because when people feel safe, then things can continue.
I think our whole government has been all about making people feel safe and not doing anything else though. This is the point, this is the part where they get me angry.
Okay.
Because I'm sure you can make people feel safe and you can give people peace of mind, but then you're going to go into the treasury, rob it, and then put all these unconstitutional mandates everywhere and violate our constitutional rights. I don't know.
Which mandates are you referring to?
I'm talking about when the mayors were given ordinances.
The
mayors were given to cut cords in prison buildings.
Well, honestly, you think about it, this is probably the first time in a really long time that any mayor or governor or anyone in power was really given an opportunity to actually...
And guess what we did? We acquiesced to their power, didn't we?
We did, but it's interesting, honestly, if you look at the difference between... And I'm not being partisan here, but if you look at the difference between party of how they chose to use that power, it's very different. If you look at states that are Democrat-controlled versus Republican-controlled, you can see a lot more shutdowns. And so it's interesting to me, from a scientific standpoint, to see, are shutdowns partisan or are they scientific? I don't know.
How can you answer that question?
I can, but that's...
Could you go ahead and answer that? Did you answer the podcast?
We've seen trends of Republican states being much more lenient to reopening because of the economic...
And that's why Texas isn't in the debacle that New York is right now. New York is in utter bankruptcy.
Yes, exactly. Because in Chicago and different cities that are run by more... that's just something we've seen, is that it really depends on the party in terms of whether things are reopening. It's not dependent on science.
I'm thankful to God that I'm a friend of that state. I mean,
Did you ever say that?
Never thought I'd think I was a red state, but Jesus, these people lost their minds. You know why? It wasn't even because of COVID. It was before that. But Donald J. Trump made these people lose their goddamn minds.
Well, I will say that, a lot of these decisions about COVID have definitely been created before any information was known. It wasn't because they knew something is why they created regulation. It's because of pre-existing what they believe.
Pre-existing conditions?
Sure, you want to call it that. Pre-existing political.
So what for you would be better, Obamacare or no care?
Well, that's not a realistic option.
Isn't it though?
No.
Do you think Trump's smart enough to come up with anything by himself?
Well, the thing is that Trump, what he's done is
We're gonna have great healthcare, okay? It's gonna be great. He's gonna take care of everybody, remember that? That's called Medicare for all.
But
didn't he endorse Medicare for all?
No, that is not Medicare for all. If you Medicare for all doesn't take care of anyone.
Take care of everyone.
I would not want Medicare. As someone who's treated someone who has Medicare, I would not want Medicare for myself.
Why is that?
Because it's not a good standard of care. It may be
why would we raise the standard of Medicare?
cheaper care.
Why would we raise the standard of Medicare?
Well, then it would be Medicare. That's what I'm saying is that.
Okay, so you're saying Medicare is Medicare because it's poor?
No, I'm saying Medicare is Medicare because of what it is. And if you change Medicare, well, I'm saying if you change Medicare, it's no longer Medicare, is it?
Okay.
If you change Obamacare, it's no longer
Medicare for all.
Okay, well then that's still not Medicare as of 2020. It's Medicare as of changing Medicare. So that's what I'm saying. And even I will say that was the interesting thing about the last debate is that Trump addressed what he's done to Obamacare. He has created changes. He hasn't repealed the whole thing. Is that he chose to repeal certain parts that he felt like didn't work.
Yeah, the mandate. Thank God.
Yeah, and you say that. Thank God. That's what I'm saying is that there's honestly, as long as politics is involved and as long as insurance is involved, we're not going to have good health care.
So that's what I think. Okay, as a progressive, and I share my hail to you because you are more of a right leader when it comes to healthcare.
I am.
But I believe healthcare is right. And I also believe that health insurance companies are benefiting opposite people. Do you know what we used to call those people back then? We used to call them snake oil salesmen.
I will agree that health insurance companies are benefiting. That is the objective of healthcare, is to benefit. They're businesses, they're making money.
Yeah. You should not be even involved in people's health.
Well, I made a joke earlier that the only way to make healthcare great is to actually abolish insurance, but
Yeah. That's my sister.
Universal healthcare. It just means that insurance is not. There's just too many moving parts, and there's too many of those moving parts are trying to make money. And unless everyone's goal is for healthcare, that's usually the end point. So.
What's your stance on abortion?
Oh, I'm pro-life, so I
What does that
use
mean?
abortion. I believe that once, and I'll be very technical just to be helpful, that once an egg has been fertilized, that is when life occurs. And
Fertilized egg.
yes, and anything past that would be considered.
So you think, birth control fine, right?
Yes, I didn't know birth control. I think everyone should have birth control. I feel like we should have better education. So that's why I'm like, I don't understand why we have to be so like Republicans are like, you have to have birth control, and then Democrats are like pro-abortion. And I'm like, what if we just educate people so they understand, hey, this is what happens when you have sex, and that way that we can be responsible adults. Like, if you have sex, at least pregnancy, you have to be responsible for that. You can't have an abortion, but also at the same time, look, we have medications that can prevent that from happening, so you can have safe sex. We can educate and also provide ways for people to have safe sex that don't lead to abortion. We need to be more responsible as people. It's not about choice, it's about responsibility, honestly, in my mind. On both sides, it's about responsibility.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Interview with Dr. Morgan Salisbury. Last words, be responsible. Responsibility. Thanks for joining us today at Tommy Nation Politics. And don't forget to think responsibly. Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. Free thinking, innovative, and totally open-minded. Tommy Nation Politics.